And please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think we might say that a little slower every time. All right, we have everybody present tonight. Councilor Fazer's on the phone. Are you out there, DJ?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, he can hear us. We have a lot of people in the audience tonight, and it looks like they're here for a variety of different reasons. So I may, depending on how things go, move public comment forward in front of some of these council action items, but not ready to make that decision just yet. We have an announcement to make before we get going on our public hearings tonight, which is that after 12 years of service to the city, our city attorney has decided to move on and go back to his private practice, and so this will be Mark Bartholomew's last meeting with us. So I want to thank you for your service, Mark, and I've enjoyed getting to know you and working with you, and we appreciate the work that you've done tirelessly for us.
Thank you very much. And I was planning on saying a few words at the end. I've saved up all of my staff comment time over the years by not saying anything, and so I think by now I probably have about 2 or 3 hours of bank time that I can spend with you at the end of the meeting.
Excellent, because I was going to warn you that I've prepped the council to talk as much as possible tonight to keep the meeting going all night long. We have quite a bit of material here to work with. So Rick is prepared to make the motion so that we go past 9, and then we'll just see how it goes from there, okay? Yeah, you want to just get that out of the way, Rick. In the meantime, we have some important business to attend to tonight, which is that we have some public hearings to get started. Alrighty. First up on the agenda is a legislative land use hearing. So at this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an ordinance that would amend Development Code Articles 22 for residential development, 23 landscape and buffering standards, 25 parking and loading, and 30 definitions related to landscape design. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by public comment, and then the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to consider this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards those criteria. The criteria which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. It's important to remember that if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue, and we will now begin the hearing with the staff report.
Excuse me, Mayor, may I get in there, please, really quick? This is DJ.
Oh, even before the presentation?
Yeah, I think that it would probably be best to make a request now, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to formally request to defer this presentation and public hearing. The complexity of the issues, I have some lingering unanswered questions, and there were some recommendations that UAPC didn't have the ability to look over. Those being just a few reasons, if council wouldn't mind setting this out to a date certain. A couple weeks would be enough for me, but I'm not sure if that would be enough if council wanted to have the UAPC also look at some of our recommendations.
Okay, council, are you interested in postponing the hearing? Valerie?
Well, I will say that 364 pages was a lot of technical information to go through, getting my packet on Monday. And so I did look it over. So I don't disagree that it's a lot of stuff to get through. I also, I mean, at this point in time, I remember when I was in the tree committee in 2016 talking about the recommendations on the parking lot. So it's been in the process for a long time, so I don't think at this point 2 more weeks is going to make a big difference. I think particularly because as I went through it, I just kind of handed it to my husband and said, hey, this might make sense to you, but it looks like Greek to me. So I wouldn't mind having the UAPC, and I was going to count on DJ, as a matter of fact, being a builder, to have a feel for some of the things that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I have no problem just postponing it to get some of those bugs worked out.
Okay, Brian?
Well, I had a question for DJ because he gave us 2 options. He said, put it out a couple weeks so we could look it over, and then the other option was have UAPC look it over. And anytime we send something to UAPC, that really extends the timeline. So I don't know how much that would extend the timeline. I would assume probably a couple of months at least. So I'm not sure if DJ has a preference or if he wants to provide any clarity on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide clarity. At this point in time, I'm satisfied with the UAPC's approval for amending the code. The recommendations and query that I have, I don't think really substantiate another UAPC meeting. So if I had it my way, I think probably a couple weeks should be just fine. But of course, it would be generally up to council.
Okay, DJ, do you want to put forward a motion with a date?
Is our next meeting on the 16th?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I move to defer the development code public hearing to our next meeting on February 16th.
Second from Valerie. Any discussion? All right, DJ, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor? Please
Yes.
open the public hearing, then do the vote to
Yeah.
set it over.
Okay. I think I said,
Do it.
okay, so I said we will now begin the hearing.
Did you read the admonishment?
I did.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was
Wait, oh, yeah,
preparing my
that's fine.
speech for later.
You were
I'm
focusing
sorry.
on your speech, I know it. He was focusing on his speech.
I was eating cupcakes over there, but yeah, so, okay, so are we okay to do it now?
Yeah, go ahead. Do it whenever.
We're going to make this hard on you, Mark. All right, so the motion was to postpone to the 16th, and DJ voted yes, I believe already. So Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes, but may I say, can we please hold on to this packet so that they don't reprint it for us on the next one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
All right, so we will postpone that past 8-0. We'll postpone it to the 16th, and everybody hang on to your packet. We're not reprinting it. All right, well, that was the quickest public hearing we didn't have so far, so let's move on to the next one.
I know. Exactly. I tried.
At this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an application to vacate the common property line between tax lots 100 and 101 of map number 360505CD. This application is, well, hang on. Get the name of the applicant here. I don't have the name of the applicant handy, do you, Mark? The name of the applicant for the second public hearing, does it matter?
It doesn't matter as part of the admonishment.
Okay. We'll begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant, statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in opposition to the application, and an opportunity for additional comments by the applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contacts, or other ex parte information they have received prior to this meeting regarding the application? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the Development Code. All testimony which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of the report, please write that on a note to the city manager and one will be provided. It is important to remember that if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, Brad Clark with Community Development Department. As you stated, this is a public hearing for a property line vacation for property addressed on 420 Northeast Greenfield Road. And there are two tax lots involved here, 100 and 101. The applicant has received a conditional approval for a 120-unit RV park on this property from the Planning Commission. A couple of weeks ago, that decision is not final. The findings of fact do still need to be approved by them before it is final. But I did want to let you know that public hearing took place at the Planning Commission, and the Commission did approve it. It was continued the first time for the opportunity to give the applicant some chances to review the concerns of the public. There was a number of adjacent property owners who had some concerns with some compatibility issues with lighting, location of trash enclosure, some concerns with traffic. A number of issues were brought up at the hearing. The Planning Commission continued it to allow the public a chance to review that, and then the applicant had another chance to give some feedback. But they did end up closing that hearing and recommending and approving. So this is a separate action related to that project. And it relates to your goals to facilitate sustainable and manageable growth. So on the screen on the left is pointing to the property line, this triangular shaped parcel here in the southeast corner is where the majority of the structures on that property are situated. This is just as you get off of exit 58. And you are all probably familiar with the property. It's been for sale for quite some time on the north side of I-5 there. So the triangular shaped piece has almost all of the current infrastructure and buildings, and then the other tax lot is largely vacant. The image on the right also points out where the property line sits in relationship to their proposed RV park. Most of those are on the vacant property, and then you can see the majority of the southeast parcel where the existing buildings are. They were proposed for most of those structures to be retained and utilized and incorporated into their project. This is just a view from Greenfield Road, looking approximate location as to where that lot line comes in from the north into Greenfield. This zooms in on the property a little bit. The notation here again showing the property line that would be vacated. Both properties are owned by the same party, so vacating the property line would not have an impact on that. In order to approve these, as you've seen in the past, there's two primary criterion that you have to meet before a property line vacation can be approved. The resulting configuration does not result in a substandard condition. And second, it's not contrary to the public health, safety, welfare, and convenience to remove that property line. We did not receive any comments related to this application. As I mentioned, we did receive a number of comments related to the Planning Commission application for the RV park itself. So your call to action, no cost implication for the city. The call to action date no later than April 5th. It's recommended to be tonight. It would become approved, it would become final 30 days after a motion to approve, and then there's a recommended motion. We do have the applicant here tonight if you like to hear from them.
They do have the opportunity, if the applicant would like to speak, this is your time.
Good evening, Council. Justin Gerlitz Engineering Consultants, here on behalf of the applicant tonight. I know these are pretty simple requests. I just wanted to make myself available for any questions that anyone might have. I think Brad made it pretty clear that this was part of a project that we recently got approved, and it's just kind of a housekeeping item more than anything. So if
Okay.
anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? All right. At this time, does staff have any further comments? The matter is now before the council for your consideration. Brian.
Yeah, I had a question for staff. So on slide 6, it says one of the criterion is, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate for this hearing or for the hearing when the next hearing that will be coming for this project, but it talks about how the proposal is not contrary to the public health, safety, welfare, and convenience or any other purpose. I know that some of the people that have been concerned about the project have expressed concerns about that being a dead-end road, and maybe ingress, egress issues, and there's some residential properties that are up against the back of that property where their backyards are bordering that property. So I assume UAPC, went through all of that and approved this with those considerations?
They did. They spent quite a bit of time looking at the written material that they received, which many of the comments were in writing prior to their hearing, and then they did discuss them at their public hearing itself. This criterion number 2 that's on the screen is, as you kind of indicated at the beginning of your comments, specific to the property line vacation. So the question is vacating the property line contrary to the public health? Because we had 12 different criterion that had to be met in order for the RV park itself to be approved, not just 2. So that's 2 separate findings of fact for 2 different applications.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any further questions or discussion? Rick, no? DJ?
Yes, I move to adopt the ordinance vacating the property line between tax lots 100 and 101 on map number 360505 CD and have it read by title only, first reading.
Thank you. Second from Valerie. Any discussion on the motion? All right, the motion was to adopt the ordinance. DJ, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Julie, can you please read the?
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass vacating the common property lines between tax lots 100 and 101 of map number 360505 CD.
Thank you. It was unanimous. Valerie?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to, I guess what's the fancy word here? Approve the ordinance vacating the property line between tax lots 100 and 101 of map number 360505 CD, second reading.
Second from Brian, thank you. Any discussion? All right, Valerie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Julie, can you please read it?
An ordinance of the council of the city of Grants Pass vacating the common property lines between tax lots 100 and 101 of map number 360505 CD.
Thank you. We've made it through 370 pages so far, so time for council action. We have something a little bit more fun. Is there a presentation?
I promise I'm only going to be up here one more time. Let's see. Okay, well, as you said, Mayor, this one has a unique opportunity for us all to recognize a member of our community who's been very involved with the park system. And so this is related to Reinhart Volunteer Park and a recognition sign for Mr. Dick Matti. And the subject is authorizing, there's a resolution before you tonight to authorize the installation of a new sign in Reinhart Volunteer Park that would recognize Dick Matti for his years of service to our public parks. And it relates to your council goals through providing cooperative shared leadership involving council, staff, and the community. So in December of 2020, the City Council updated the city's policy related to the naming of park facilities, the naming of parks themselves, of park areas. And within that policy, there's a mechanism that gives members of the public the opportunity to nominate folks who have been very active or have contributed or sponsored or some other way worthy of some kind of recognition to have a recognition in one of our public parks. And after his departure from the Parks Advisory Committee, 2 committee members wanted to recognize Dick Matti for all of his time and efforts. He was chair for many years and was particularly involved with his work at Reinhart on the soccer field, the synthetic field there, and the lighting. So that application was filed, and the process is to go to the Parks Advisory Committee with this kind of nomination. That's how the policy is set up. So that did happen, and then staff kind of worked to look on the park and where they thought might be a good location for a sign. The application was submitted by Jan Battersby and Cliff Coleman, and they submitted this to nominate Mr. Matti. Some of the things that were in the application that we just wanted to point out tonight, he served as president to the All Sports Park Board, helped to raise $125,000 to acquire new lighting for the soccer field, assisted with setting up River Vista in the park, in Reinhart Volunteer Park, and as I mentioned, chair of the Parks Advisory Committee for more than 8 years. Here's just a rough sketch of the sign that Logan Design here in town helped put together. It's a dye-bond panel, has a brushed chrome lettering, and it would state Dick Matti Soccer Field, 4 years of loyal service in our Grants Pass parks. The location that our park staff have kind of looked at, Lincoln Road's here. Here's the soccer field. There's a walkway between the ball diamond and the soccer field, and there's a couple of locations that are possibilities in there. We're talking about mounted, kind of on a 4x4 post that would be there, kind of at easy to read at eye level, mounted kind of in that part of the park. Not a lot of cost implication to this, largely because of Mr. Coleman's efforts through his Rotary Club, doing some fundraising to pay for the sign itself. Approximately $60 is the estimate that we have from Logan Design. And then they're just, a few staff resources for us to dig the hole and put the post in the ground and install it. And this is fully at council's discretion as per the policy, how you want to handle these kinds of name recognitions. But from the Parks Advisory Committee, they are recommending strongly approval. So that's what we have for you from staff.
Thank you.
We have them here tonight.
Thank you, Brad. Was there anyone from Parks Committee that wanted to speak on their,
My name is Cliff Coolman, and I've been on the Parks Committee from the beginning, and so is Dick Matti, who's sitting next to me. Dick Matti is sitting right next to me. He and I are charter members of the Parks Advisory Committee, back when it was called Parks Advisory Board, and Jan Battersby also is a third. So the three of us, Dick has retired. I'll retire on June 30th, and Jan will be the only one continuing as far as I know at this time. We look at this as a celebration as well as a dedication. This is volunteerism being shown to the community, starting way back with John Reinhart Volunteer Park and the construction of that. And Dick Matti was right by John Reinhart every step of the way with his own shovel and hoe. And that park was built, and that park was then dedicated to the city. And then the city decided to upgrade and put in a turf soccer field, which is beautiful. There was no name suggested. I'm suggesting on behalf of the Rotary Club of Grants Pass and the Parks Advisory Committee, unanimous approval. And since I'm the only officer left right now until we elect a chairman and vice chairman, I'm the vice chair, and I would solicit your vote tonight. A unanimous vote showing our appreciation for a man of very few words who would just as soon not talk tonight. I would like my wife to say something, though, from the woman's viewpoint.
okay, well, I'll open it
Nettie?
up for, I'll open it up for public comment in a moment. Cliff, I was just having you up as a representative of the Parks Committee, but Council, do you have any questions either for staff or for the committee before we move forward? No? Okay, in that case, I will open it up for public comment on this matter. So, Mrs. Kuhlman.
Well, Dick Matti, for 32 years, has worked with soccer girls. And amazing. These girls, some of them had no self-worth, just no discipline. He took these girls, one of them was my granddaughter, who's 33 now, and she became a totally different person under his direction. She learned that it's okay to lose. And he made her believe that she was the most valuable player, and he made every girl feel that they were the most valuable player on that team. This is a man that is amazing. My granddaughter's now 33. She's been playing soccer ever since. And so I really recommend that you make this possible for so many girls who will be able to come and see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wanted to speak on this issue? All right, Council, I'll turn it over to you. Valerie.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, because I had the opportunity of serving on the parks as a liaison when Dick was there, and my husband also worked on the Reinhart. And like you said, what has been done in this community with volunteer work is absolutely amazing. And I think he represents that willingness to give to the community and the importance of it. So I am so proud to see him honored in this way. And so I'll make a motion to approve the sign, installing a sign in Reinhart Park to recognize him for his year of service to public parks.
Thank you. Second from everybody. Brian had the second that I saw first anyway. I think I know how this is going to go down. Did you have a comment, Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to say really quick that when I first began my foray into public service, it was on the Parks Committee, and I had the honor and privilege of being on the committee when Dick was the chair. So he provided a steady hand and strong leadership on that committee for so long, and it was just an honor to be able to be on the committee with him before he decided to step away. So thank you, Dick.
Thank you. Joel?
Well, the other thing I'd like to recognize, Dick, is that you volunteered for the parks. And you mowed grass. You did a lot of blue-collar things for the parks just because you cared. And the other thing I got to say with a smile on my face, I enjoyed coaching against you in girls soccer. It was a lot of fun, and it was always a challenge, so thank you.
Did he teach you that it was okay to lose? Rick?
I've known Dick Matti for over 40 years, and it's been a really an honor to know him and see how he has served the community in many ways. He's really been an example, and he's been my eye doctor and known him in the church, but his endless energy is really to be honored, and it's really a tribute to be able to do this. Thank you.
All right. Valerie, you made the motion to approve the application and install a sign in Reinhart Volunteer Park recognizing Dick Matti for his years of service. How do you vote?
I vote yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Thank you for your service, Mr. Matti. All right, next up on the agenda, we're going to consider some updates to franchise agreements, first with Southern Oregon Sanitation.
Jason's on his way. I was just pulling it up and getting it ready for him as he's bringing over the overflow. So.
Oh, okay. This is part of the plan, Mark. Things were really passing unexpectedly fast, so we had to, invent a few delays.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry for the little bit of delay. So I have one presentation for you tonight for your next two items, which is items 2B and 2C, as they are essentially the same item, but they are two separate franchise agreements, so we need to take action in two separate actions. But the changes that are reflected are the same in both agreements. So we're going to do a very brief summary of the solid waste franchise agreements and the changes that are incorporated therein for your consideration. And it's important to note, and I'll say this several times throughout the presentation, these are very minor changes, most of which are grammatical and some typos, and then reordering, putting things in sections to where they matched up. A little bit of background, the City of Grants Pass has a solid waste agency, and our solid waste services are provided through franchise agreements with two companies, which is a little bit different for some communities. But one serves essentially everything north of the river. It actually goes a little bit south, but not far, and the other serves south of the river. Those original agreements have been in place for a number of years, but the last major revisions occurred at the closing of the Merlin landfill, which was around the year 2000. In 2001, Josephine County and the City of Grants Pass they entered into an intergovernmental agreement to form what's known as the Solid Waste Agency. The purpose of that agency was to manage the funds for remediating solid waste issues such as the Merlin landfill, Marlson Lagoons, the Kirby landfill, but it was also to administer the franchise agreements for all of the participating agencies. The City of Grants Pass has 2 agreements, as I just said, Republic Services and Southern Oregon Sanitation. Josephine County has 2 agreements, one Republic Services and Southern Oregon Sanitation, and the City of Cave Junction, who is also a partner in the agency, has 1 agreement with Southern Oregon Sanitation. The agency itself is actually funded through collection of an environmental program fee, which is a $5 per ton fee placed on refuse. Those funds are actually used for administering solid waste programs. We fund the Department of Public Safety, as well as the Josephine County Code Enforcement programs for solid waste cleanup efforts at problem properties. We do environmental monitoring at all of the closed landfills, as well as post-closure maintenance at Marlson, Kirby, and Merlin landfills. In addition, they perform remediation of contaminated sites and any other actions which are ordered by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. The fund has been used to support many, many projects in the franchise area to reduce environmental contamination. The board is comprised of 3 members from the City of Grants Pass, 3 from Josephine County, and 1 from Cave Junction. And why that's important, when this project came up, it really was to look at all of the agreements. So when the agreements were updated, it wasn't just the City of Grants Passes. We updated the 2 agreements with the City of Grants Pass, the 2 from Josephine County, and the agreement from the City of Cave Junction. So that board is tasked with making recommendations to you as the governing board on rate adjustments, as well as changes to the franchise agreements. Any recommendation they would make would be incorporated into the agreement, including any rate schedules. The agency then forwards those to you for your consideration. In the case of a rate increase, those increases have to be acted on by the board within 60 days before they will become effective. That is not the case for this particular action. So in 2019, the Solid Waste Agency began a project to update the franchise agreements. As I said, the last major revision was in the year 2000. And our goal was not to make a major revision. However, there had been numerous changes through small language changes, rate adoptions, small changes, and they kept getting added to the back of the agreements as Addendum A, and another Addendum A, and then another Addendum A. And it was very hard for us as the administrators of those franchise agreements to really understand what was the most recent and what was superseded and what was not. So at that time, we worked with an attorney to go back through all of the council and county commissioner actions that affected those agreements and to incorporate all of those changes into the single document. The goal is make it easier to read, easier to understand, and incorporated many of those edits. We went through multiple reviews with the Solid Waste Agency. I'm sure Councilor Riker could speak to that. I want to say it was before the agency 5-6 times or more. And after multiple reviews, the agency did approve all of the changes to those documents in November of 2021. Since that time, Josephine County has adopted the changes to the franchise agreements on December 9th of 2021. They are essentially the identical to what you have before you today. Key changes, mostly grammar and spelling, update to locations of transfer stations and waste collection sites, including the hours and days of operations to reflect the current operations. Also incorporating language to reflect operational changes. So when these agreements were written, there was not wildfires as prevalent. And so we didn't have to deal with OSHA regulations regarding smoke and workers being exposed to those atmospheric conditions. So we've written in some safety provisions that allow them to not collect if there is smoke in hazardous areas, or to give them time to retrofit their cabs with air filtering capabilities so that they're able to send their workers out in a safe environment. Those weren't in that agreements previously. There was also clarification on the cost of living adjustment language. There was language in there previously, but it was not real clear. A small change in there which would allow for small incremental adjustments as long as they were within their parameters. So as you know, in the franchise adjustment, they have a minimum and a maximum profit level. If they're below the minimum, they're allowed to ask for a much larger rate increase. But if they're within there, we'll allow those small incremental changes that will keep them in that range without having to do much larger changes frequently. And then also we updated all of the approved recycling list as well as green waste program, which were not, green waste wasn't included in the original documents. It's a service that was added later. And then as we are all aware, the recycle markets have changed dramatically in the last few years. And so we've updated the program to include the products, only those that are actually collected. So we do have a call to action date of today. There is no cost implication to the city. There could be some potential minor increases as COLAs are applied in the future. But the agency will continue to monitor that and refer those to the respective boards as they are brought forward. The alternatives are there, and I am here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Jason. Does anyone have any questions? Valerie?
Yes, Jason, thank you. I just want clarification, because of course, you know, I've been there when we went through the rate changes before, and so that was a big, pretty big. So I just want to clarify. So in other words, because they always kind of held on and didn't do any adjustments until we went through the big change, and that's when I got to understand that. I think it's 9 and 13. They stay within that.
Yep.
At this point, they can go ahead and make minor adjustments to the rate to the customers to adjust for COLA without having to go through that process, and only if they get below the 9 in the profit or whatever, at that point they'll come to us and we'll have a larger discussion?
That is correct, and we'll refer the COLA changes back to you as well. This just again allows, similar as we do for all of our like water and wastewater utilities, where we just keep track with inflation. So if they are between that 9 and 13%, and the COLA, the CPI comes in for their index at 1.3, they'll be allowed a change of 1.3. So instead of falling 1.3% behind, they'll just kind of keep track similar to that. And then in theory, their profitability should never change unless suddenly Dry Creek landfill quadruples their rate or some other thing that really affects them. It changes their profitability.
Okay, thank you.
Vanessa?
Thank you, Jason. There is a clause on financial audit, and it's not edited in the franchise agreement, but I wanted to make sure it states any audit shall consider only full fiscal years after the effective date of this agreement. That wouldn't alter the date of the agreement if we did adopt this today, would it? For our ability to possibly go back and financially audit?
Okay, that's a great question. Mark, can I ask a question? If that's the original language, and she is correct, so it does say after the date of this agreement, would it be considered a Scrivener's error? Would we change that to the original date of the agreement, which was 2000, which would allow us to
Can you tell me specifically the section you're talking about, Counselor?
Section 6.6, page 413.
Okay.
I think that was your intent, right? To make sure that we could audit backwards.
Correct.
Yeah.
So your concern is last sentence, it says after the effective date of this agreement.
Yeah, I wanted to ensure that if there was an adoption today, it wouldn't alter that
Our ability
that
to
date.
to look into something from a year ago or whatever.
Correct.
So why don't I would recommend that you would make a motion to insert a new sentence that says, for purposes of this provision, the effective date of this agreement is, and
The original date, which would be something
Whatever the
in
original date
2000.
is, I don't have that on.
It's at the bottom of the page, says November 7th, 2000.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Both of these, of course.
We would want to make that motion on both. Yes.
Other questions? Brian?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. This might be more, it's either for Jason or Rick or whoever wants to answer, but on page 397 at the very top, the previous language said that the contractor may assess a $20 fee to customers who contaminate their commingled recycling greater than one time. And the updated agreement has that crossed out. So is that penalty become discretionary for the providers at that?
No, it is actually included in the price sheets, so it got relocated. So that's why we tried to make all of these agreements be the same. There is a huge issue with commingled contamination that actually costs you as a ratepayer quite a bit of money. And so that's one of the few tools. They don't use it very often, but very occasionally. It's
Great.
actually better probably to remove the recycle cart. I'm looking for Nick to go if that's really the better method, to take the recycle cart away as opposed to trying to get them to pay the fees.
Very good, thanks.
Any other questions? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on this issue? All right, council, I will turn it over to you for discussion. Vanessa?
I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the updated franchise agreement with Southern Oregon Sanitation with an addition to section 6.6, including the modified effective date of November 7th, 2000. To the last sentence of that. It's a messy motion, forgive me.
Okay, thank you. Rick with the second. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Vanessa, you made the motion to approve the resolution with a modification to section 6.6. How do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Valerie?
Valerie,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
DJ?
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion passes 8-0. How we ended up with two V names, huh? All right. Are we going to repeat now?
Same.
Are you coming back up, or you want us to just, okay, we're just going to continue on then with the next item, have the same presentation. So the next item is same but related to Republic Services. So, council, do you have any questions? All right, anyone here to speak on that item? Guessing not. Okay, any discussion, council? Do you want to make your same motion, Vanessa?
Yes, I will. I move to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the amended franchise agreement with Republic Services with an amendment to section 6.6, including an effective date of October 2nd, 2000.
November.
Does this one have it has a different date than the first one did?
Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
October 2nd, 2000.
Okay.
Okay. Rick with the second again. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Vanessa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 8-0. Next up, we are considering a resolution that would amend Resolution 21-7048, awarding Ward Warren a design grant. Is there a presentation? Brad, you are coming back up to see us.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Brad Clark again with Community Development. As you stated, Mayor, there's a couple of parcels here that have been approved for grants in the past. Mr. Warren has been working on the project. There's been a number of issues that have come up, mostly related to COVID and the challenges related to labor and material shortages and things like that that have caused the delay. So I'll just kind of review quickly the approval that has already been given, and then specifically the request that's before you tonight. And Mr. Warren's here tonight as well in the audience. So the purpose of the Building Renovation Grant Fund is really to restore buildings in designated areas, to increase the safety and potential usability of the structures, to encourage property owners, and to provide renovation of second floors to commercial and residential uses. And then really the primary reason we're here tonight, the summary is to discuss the time extension for 2 grants for Mr. Warren on these Northwest 6th Street properties. So the conditions of this particular economic development grant do require that the total amount that the city gives is the lesser of 2 numbers. It's either a maximum 85% of the project, but no more than $50,000. It does require that matching fund, and that takes the form of actual business expenditures or encumbrances that are used specifically for improvements for that property. There does need to be a feasibility to have a reasonable prospect of imminent building use. And as I mentioned before, the spirit of this program is to increase downtown's economic vitality by giving basically more usable square footage, particularly in buildings that don't have them. And in this particular case, by adding a fire sprinkler system to an older historic building that was found to improve the usability and give more opportunity for business and economic use in our downtown. The City Council did approve this a few times. I'm not going to go over all of these, but just this was in our prior presentation, so I just wanted to include it. 2015, 2016, 17, 18, there were approvals for the same grant that were expired. And then in May 19th, 2021, last year, this council did approve a design grant, which the code or which the policy allows for a design grant to actually design, say, like a sprinkler system, and then a grant to actually conduct the work. And the council did put a 6-month expiration on that grant on both grants in last May. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is to basically request an extension again on those monies. The big difference here is at this point we have received invoices from Mr. Warren for all of the work, and so the request tonight is really, do you authorize the extension, because technically the city can't forward any money because it is on paper expired. As I mentioned, really because of the challenges with COVID. So if approved, each of the resolutions would be $3,357.50 for the design grant. The reason it's not $5,000 is some of that money had already been expended the first time. And then $43,796 for the renovation grant, for a total of $94,308 for both. The fire sprinkler and structural retrofit grants, in our budget, that LB project technically closed, but we did move that money into LB 6381, the balance that was there for this program. So what staff is recommending is that we use the balance of that, which is now in LB 6381, that $33,948. And then the difference, that $60,360 would be paid out through the Business Renovation and Relocation Assistance Project. And that's a different LB project that is funded through urban renewal. So essentially we're using some of that older loan fund, which was community development block grant, and then some urban renewal funds to pay for the grant. So that's where we're at. It's at your discretion. You do technically have the two resolutions because there are two separate lots that are involved here tonight, one grant for each lot.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Kurt?
Brad, didn't we vacate the line between those two addresses?
There was a request to vacate. That was related to, that was prior to the grant. So, you know, those were closely related in terms of the timing the first time. You approved the grants, and then there was a request to vacate, and that was really related to the proposed user at the time, as you may recall, needed to have, from a building code standpoint,
so it's two lots?
The lot line, you know, divided. But
so it's two lots and it remains two lots?
No. Well, today, because of that vacation, that lot line vacation results in a single lot, but this grant was approved prior to that. So, if that makes sense. It's a timing issue.
Any other questions? Joel?
I just had a clarification, make sure I heard you correctly, Brad, that the work, you've received the receipts for the work and the work's been completed?
Yes, that's correct. Our business operations supervisor has received and reviewed those. The vast majority of those have been approved. There was a couple that did not qualify for the reimbursement, but the majority did.
Rick?
So Mark, I have a question for you. Mark Bartholomew. So the remark that Curtis made, do we have any problem with proceeding with this?
I'm not sure what, I think that planning director said that we already had them approved based on their prior non-lot line vacated, so I don't think we have a problem proceeding.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Ward, did you want to speak on this? Yep, please come forward.
I just want to thank the council for the support. This project, I've owned, a number of downtown historic buildings and fixed them up over the years, but this project has been full of complications and landmines that have been unbelievable. But I'm really close to having the building come back to life. I've owned it since 2014, and the lot line vacation was required. Otherwise, I would have had to put in, everything had to be two separate sprinkler systems. It would have delayed it for who knows how long. And anyway, I've spent just in the last year about twice as much, but I really appreciate the council's support and the staff's assistance in helping me navigate this thing, because it's been a bear. But we're almost there, and I think we accomplished the goals, which was to increase life safety and to make it a building that could be multi-use, and I think we've accomplished that. So anyway, I want to thank you all for both council, mayor, and staff.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ward? Valerie?
Yeah, I just have a question. So that has been brought up to the code then that you were trying to get it up to be able to be utilized at this point, the fire code?
What else do I have to do? Is that the question?
Yeah, that's my question.
So basically, as you know, I did at one point have a tenant. That didn't work out. Unfortunately, there was quite a bit of problem with the building after the tenant left, and I need to do a bunch of repairs now. I also just recently completed, there was over 100 feet of sewer lateral in front, and I had to replace that entire section, which wasn't even included in the figures that I turned into the city on the rest of the project. So, yeah, it really needed a lot of help, but that now means that you can have an increased number of fixtures, toilets and sinks and so forth. I also had the water line upgraded, upsized, so that it'll carry more water to the building now. So yeah, I can see, I'm hoping to be done in about 3 months and then put it out. And you know, I don't see very many vacancies in the historic district, and with the way things have been going for our historic district, hopefully something will occupy it, something good will occupy it real soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? No, thank you, Ward. Is there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on this? All right, council, I will turn it over to you. Discussion? Rick?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution awarding a design grant in the amount of $3,357.50 and the building renovation grant in the amount of up to $50,000 to Ward Warren for the address of 232 Northwest 6th Street for fire suppression installation.
Thank you. And a second from Kurt. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Rick made a motion to approve. How do you vote, Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 8-0. We have a second item that's, Valerie, go ahead.
Yes, I move to approve the resolution awarding a design grant in the amount of $3,357.50 and a building renovation grant in the amount of up to $50,000 to Ward Warren for 230 Northwest 6th Street for fire suppression installation.
Thank you. Kurt with the second. Is there any discussion on this motion? All right, Valerie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 8-0. All right, next up, we have a resolution to authorize the city manager to submit a grant application through the Department of Homeland Security for the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response SAFER grant program. And it looks like Randy is presenting. Well, we have a little lag here. I'll tell you all that I'm planning to move public comment up before the appointment. So we'll finish off through item G, and then we'll have the public comment.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for having me here so we can actually talk a little bit about SAFER grant and staffing. I'm going to go into what the AFG grant is, SAFER is, talk a little bit about the reasoning behind the staffing, and then go through the proposal. So first of all, the history. So the AFG grant is Assistance for Firefighter grant. There's many of them that come out throughout the year. We actually put in for another one just a few months ago for some SCBA stuff. This one is the SAFER portion, and it's a staffing related portion. It allows for us to put in for staffing to help bring us up to what's actually 1710 and 1720. We fall into the 1710 standards for NFPA. The goal is to enhance the local fire department's abilities to comply with the NFPA 1710 and 1720 And the window's very short. It's been a lot of work to try to get this done in a short amount of time. Opened on January 3rd and is closing on Friday. So in 2018, part of a study that was done by Matrix was looking at fire rescue services here, and they focused on community risk assessment, response time analysis, resource locations, response network, staffing, and manpower. One of the big things out of that assessment was that we needed to look at increasing our staffing on our engines to 3-person staffing on all engines. So you can see here on this graph, it shows you what the recommendation is, where we're at, and where 3-person staffing would actually bring us up to. So if you just look at the structural fire response, they currently recommend 14 personnel show up on the first alarm. Existing, we currently had 7 at that time. Now we're up to 8, and proposed staffing to bring us up to 10. So I know 14 kind of shows the example, but through mutual aid, that actually gets our numbers up there, and that's one of the reasons why they were looking at 10 as the goal, is with our current mutual aid system that allows us to get up to that 14 number. Current staffing model is when we're fully staffed, Parkway we have 3 paid plus a battalion chief, Hillcrest we have 3 paid, and Redwood we have 2. Minimum staffing, we've got 2 per engine, so Parkway would have 2 paid plus a battalion chief, and then the other 2 stations would just have the 2 paid personnel. We do have our student position and student program. We currently have 5 student positions that are available. We just had one of those students leave, so we're down to 2 student positions at the moment. As mentioned during goal setting, our student program is one of those things that we've had for many years. In most recent years, we've definitely seen a decrease in being able to get some students into the program, partly due to competition around the valley. Most recently, there's some significant competition over in Jackson County with basically a paid student program that they have operating over there, and that's actually where the one student that just left us this month went to. So the grant request. Through the AFG SAFER grant, we're looking to request for 3 paid positions. This grant would last for 3 years, and we're not required to retain these employees at the end of the grant. We have went for AFG grant prior. I think it was mid to late 2000s when we opened up the other station, but at that time you were required to keep these people on for a certain amount of time at the end of the grant. And in fact, the payments decreased. You had a full payment your first year, decreased payment your second year, decreased even more your third, and then the fourth year is when you would actually take over full payment. With this now, SAFER has changed and recognized that that ran into many issues for a lot of agencies. And so now there is no requirement for us to keep them on at the end of the 3 years. And currently, they do change the rules on AFG every once in a while, but currently there's nothing that stops us from putting in for it again at the end of the 3 years. By adding these 3 positions, it will bring our staffing level up to 3 per engine when fully staffed. Reality is, with vacations, that's probably going to be a very rare thing. So we'd be looking at more often, we'd have 3 people at Hillcrest, 3 people at Parkway, 2 people at Redwood. And then even with that, going through the last year, which that's where our staffing can be right now when we're fully staffed, you end up with people out on FMLA, sick, COVID has really hit us at times. So it can even drop our staffing down where we're not even able to maintain that level. My goal, and I think the first goal that they were looking at in the Matrix study, is to get Parkway up to 3-person staffing as much as we possibly can. The reason for that, Parkway is our central station. So it's the one that is actually providing assistance to both Hillcrest and Redwood. So if you have a fire up in the Hillcrest area, Parkway is going to be your second due unit. In fact, I'll have an example to go through here in a minute that kind of describes it well. And same out in Redwood. Same thing with cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest takes several people to actually work through. And so we end up with 2 engines going to most of those. So having the 3rd person on that gives that ability to have that increased personnel there so that we can do the best we can to help treat the person. It's also our industrial area. So it covers most of our industrial, larger commercial buildings, those things of that nature. And it has the aerial. The aerial is one unit that we try to send with 3 people on it whenever we can. In order to actually set it up, operate it appropriately, and be as safe as possible, really needs to have 3 people. In the busiest district, so again, staffing Parkway would be our main objective. So I don't know if anyone is familiar with the recent structure fire that we just had up at 1439 Northwest Washington. So this was on the 12th of January. 12:33 in the afternoon is when we got the information about a possible fire. This fire is probably the closest we've come in a long time to having a double fatality here in our community. I would say that the mother probably had 30 to 60 seconds before she would have succumbed inside the building and not been able to get out. So we got the report of the fire. Hillcrest is just sitting up there down the street. They were able to get on scene really quickly because of their drive time. In the meantime, what they didn't know is mom had been upstairs sleeping with her 3-year-old daughter, and she was able to wake up to the smoke. The fire was downstairs. There was no exit through the stairwell itself. She broke out the window. She tossed her 3-year-old down to some District 7 employees that we recognized last week. She then tossed the dog down to him, and then she just jumped down to him. This fire kind of is our training scenario that we work on a lot, a family trapped inside of a building, that type of situation. So 7307 showed up. They started doing their initial attack. One person was able to get the line on the ground. The other person was able to start going around and seeing what else needed to be done. With that, they had to leave the pump panel that was now no one's watching it. 7308 showed up, and because they had that 3-person staffing, which is what we're trying to get us up to, they were able to deploy the officer and the firefighter, put on packs, go assist the other crew, where now they could go interior and do both fire attack and search of the building at the same time, while their engineer took over pump operations. A couple things that 3-person staffing would help us out with on this exact fire itself. Let's say that we actually did have 3 up at Hillcrest that day. I had showed up on scene. I'd been out and about, so I was relatively close. Showed up with 07. Myself, I've been able to put on my turnout gear. 07's crew would have been able to start their fire attack 2 minutes earlier if they'd had a 3-person crew. 2 in, 2 out is the reasoning for that, and that's what OSHA requires for us to be able to go in if we don't believe that anybody is inside the building. In this case, the family had said that they had gotten out. Of course, we had bystanders that witnessed that and helped them. Also, VEIS, this was a scenario that we would have actually used VEIS. It's where we actually will go up, break a window, make entry, search a room, find the victims, and bring them out through the window and down a ladder. VEIS, though, in order to make it really function and function safely, you need 3 people there. You need an officer to be able to go up. They're going to break the window. They're going to go inside the room. They're going to do a search, find the person, bring them to the window. You need someone on the ladder that's going to go ahead and grab the person and bring them down, and you need someone at the base of the ladder that is actually holding, stabilizing, so it doesn't fall. So, call to action. Of course, council's discretion, and recommendations apply for the AFG Safer Staffing Grant for 3 personnel for 3 years. Total cost of $1,075,867.62. Alternatives are do not apply for the grant, apply for more or less personnel. I do have to say, if you do more or less personnel, with our timeline, it would be really tough for us to turn around the numbers and actually get it in by Friday. So, questions?
Thank you. Are there questions? Rick?
Randy, I have some trivia. SAFER, are they a national organization, and where do they get their funding to provide these grants?
They're part of Homeland Security.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Vanessa?
Thank you, Randy. At the end, you had said for more or less personnel, depending on the grant. Does that mean potentially in 3 years, if we are awarded and we had chose to reapply, we could apply for more staffing than
Yes.
what's being requested today? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Valerie?
Yes, I was just curious, I mean, because obviously this is a wonderful opportunity if we are to get it. So how long has have they had this grant money available in the past? And obviously it's carrying forward. So I'm just wondering how secure this is in terms of looking down the road for more.
So the AFG grant has actually been around quite a long time. Like I mentioned, we actually applied for it, and when we opened the Redwood Station, I believe it actually funded 6 of the firefighters at that point in time. And that was back around 2007, 2008. It's continued every year since then. One of the main reasons why we hadn't used it, since that point in time was because of, if order to put in for the staffing, you needed to make sure you had the funds in place to keep the staffing on.
Okay.
I'm not sure when they actually changed that role and went to where that's now no longer the case, but sometime in the last few years they've changed that. And my guess would be is that was one of the limiting factors for a lot of agencies to be able to put in for the grant was the requirement to keep the staffing on.
Yes, thanks for that update.
Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Randy. I just had a question about, you mentioned that student program that they have over in Jackson County that we lost one of our student firefighters to because it's a paid program. Do we happen to know if they self-fund that program, or do they get grant funding for that program, or are we not certain?
So they went out for 25 positions this last, I want to say October, November. There's 2 different grants that is being funded by. 12 of them, I believe, are from the state, 10 or 12 of them from the state, and the rest of them are actually from the AFG Safer grant like this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Randy. Public, is there anyone here from the public who wanted to speak on this? Please come forward and tell us your name. It's just on this issue, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, not on this issue.
Okay, yeah, we're just dealing with this issue, and then we'll have a regular public comment later.
Hello, can you hear me? My name is Brandon Rigaud. I'm the Vice President of Grants Pass Professional Firefighters. I have 3564. I'm standing before you tonight to speak in favor of the application for the AFG Safer Grant for the 3 firefighter positions. This grant provides critical personnel and staff to respond to all risk emergency incidents in the city, which include the structure fire, which Chief DeLong just spoke about, traffic collisions and medical aids, to name a few, in addition to our other all-risk hazard events. This is a first step towards improving staffing levels to meet the recommendations that the matrix report, the Standards of Coverage and Risk Assessment, compiled in 2018. In the aforementioned report, the recommended staffing levels of 3 career firefighters on all fire apparatuses in alignment with NFPA recommendation and industry best practice for public and firefighter safety. And to speak more to what Chief DeLong mentioned, most days our engines are staffed with 2. So this would be a real step in the right direction. This stopgap that provides us and helps maintain that staffing. Sorry, I lost my place here. If we hire these folks, this will also put a requirement for this for council to continue to pursue additional permanent funding solutions that fund those full-time positions. Our group of committed professionals and the International Association of Firefighters made all of its resources available to assist with the creation of this grant, including the International reviewing the narrative to help us achieve maximum points during the scoring, which happens at the national level. This, along with the International's assistance with the levy last year, are examples of the commitment that our firefighters have made to the community that we serve. And I ask that council continues to pursue permanent funding that provides adequate and safe staffing, continue to find ways to allow firefighters to be more effective at our jobs of keeping grants passed safe, and lastly, ask that IFF 3564 be reached out to for any assistance or education that the council, that we can provide for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else who wanted to speak on this issue? All right, council, I will turn it over to you for discussion. Valerie.
I don't think there's much to discuss. I think all of us know the need. I don't think there's a single one of us that doesn't appreciate what the firefighters do in our community and know that this will truly be a blessing because we have been working with less firefighters than we'd like to have. So I move to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Department of Homeland Security for the Safer Grant Program.
Second from Brian, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Vanessa?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick statement. Thank you, Randy, for giving us a specific example as to how the staffing levels can be dangerous in this community. Emergency responders are trained to remain calm and professional, so this might not be something that we are aware of because everything to us with our citizen eye looks normal and okay, but until they come to us and tell us that there's a problem, we may not know about it. So thank you for that. That's really eye-opening, and I look forward to working with council on not only permanently funding, increased staffing, and moving forward from there. So I'm glad to see this evening.
Any other discussion? All right, Valerie, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 8-0. The next item on the agenda is not in your packet, but it's on the amended agenda. We have item F is discussing the city attorney evaluation process, and the city attorney, Mark Bartholomew, is presenting.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as requested by, having trouble moving this slide along to the next page. As requested by council at the workshop on Monday, council has an interest in exploring whether the council should be involved in the evaluation process for the city attorney. So I've prepared some information for the council to consider. It's contained within the charter. In response to that, I think it's going to be primarily a council discussion, but I'm just going to frame it and give you my opinion on the issue. So the charter provides for 2 appointive offices. That's a term used in the charter, and they're the municipal judge, which we all know we don't have one because we don't have a municipal court, but in case we did get one in the future, we already have the charter all ready for it. And then the other one, of course, is the city manager. So here's a direct quote from the charter. Appointive offices of the city shall be the city manager and the municipal judge and municipal judges pro tem, which shall be filled by appointment of the council. So there are no other employees that the council appoints. The charter provides direction regarding hiring and removal of the city attorney. So the city attorney shall be the chief legal officer of the city. The city manager shall hire and or terminate the city attorney subject to the consent of the council. And that provision, of course, is added to the charter in 2013 after voter approval to an amendment to the charter. So council consent to the city attorney appointment and removal is what I view as a check on the appointment and removal authority of the city manager. So just a checks and balances, a check on the power of the city manager. But the process is not driven by, the process is driven by the city manager. The council cannot unilaterally decide to appoint a new city attorney or remove an existing city attorney, and the council may not coerce the city manager in that regard either. And there's something directly on point in the charter on that topic. So Chapter 5, Section 2(6), interference in administration and elections. I'm not going to read all of it, but it essentially says no member of the council shall coerce the manager in making an appointment or removal of an employee or discuss directly or indirectly the matter of specific appointments to any city employment. Violation of that shall constitute grounds for removal from office of a councilor by a majority of the council holding office following a public hearing. So the process of appointment or removal of the city attorney must be initiated by the city manager. And then the city manager then proffers that suggestion on appointment or removal for the council to give its consent or withhold consent. So council consent is not the same as council appointment. That's really the upshot of what I've covered so far. Okay, so the charter provides that the manager has supervisory authority over employees with limited exceptions. And so those exceptions are set forth in the charter. So it says the powers and duties of the manager are as follows, and I'm just gonna give a little editorial comment here. This is a terrible sentence. Designated city recorder and the manager shall hire and remove city employees. So I guess I'm gonna say, I can't believe we didn't catch that in the last 2 rounds of charter revisions, because it's kind of a run on with 2 different topics, and I'm sort of embarrassed to have it on the screen, but we have what we have. So designated city recorder and the manager shall hire and may remove city employees except as the charter otherwise provides, and shall have general supervision and control over them and their work with power to transfer an employee from one department to another. The manager shall supervise all departments. So the except as the charter provides modifies the manager's authority to hire and remove certain employees, because that except as provides is directly following his ability to hire and remove city employees. Manager's authority to hire and remove the city attorney is of course subject to council consent, like we talked about. Similarly, his authority over the municipal judge and court employees is limited by the foregoing, and by council's authority to appoint a municipal judge. So one item I didn't really go through in detail on this last page is the manager does not have control over the judge's court staff. If we were to have that, that's up to the municipal judge. So the charter is clear that the council's role in the hiring and removing of city attorney is limited to its consent to the city manager's proposed action. Charter is also clear that the city manager has supervision and control over all employees, including the city attorney, except for the municipal judge and the judge's employees. So council evaluation, in my opinion, and or performance review of an employee other than the city manager or judge is contrary to the charter, and it would amount to a violation of the charter. The plain text is clear. When you evaluate laws, which the charter is a law, you look at the 4 corners of the law, and if it's clear from there, then your analysis is done. If there's any lack of clarity, if it's ambiguous, you look at legislative history. Again, I don't think legislative history is applicable in this instance, but I can tell you that during the legislation leading up to proposing this change to voters, the intent of that legislation was, in my opinion, that it was just simply to provide a check and balance on hiring and firing, and not to provide any sort of supervisory or evaluation privileges or obligations to the council. So the charter simply, in my opinion, does not permit council to conduct or participate in a performance evaluation. Strictly the domain of the city manager. It would violate the charter to do otherwise, so I recommend maintaining status quo.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions for Mark?
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on this issue? All right, we'll open it up for council discussion. Brian?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually do have a question for Mark. So I think I'm clear. Those are some decently meaty slides, and we went decently quick, but I think I got the gist of it. My question is, like that first bullet says, the charter doesn't permit council to conduct or participate in performance evaluations. Would the charter permit council to witness performance evaluations?
That would be a gray area at best. I think that council's presence in a performance evaluation could be potentially coercive toward the manager as far as how the manager conducts it. So I would say that's probably inappropriate, more of a gray area than what I covered here though.
Okay. Would the charter permit council to receive a report of the evaluation after it's completed?
Yeah, I don't think the charter would have any preventive effect of that.
Okay, thanks.
Council, any further discussion on this? Rob?
Yeah, anyway, your interpretation or your opinions are appreciated. The League of Oregon Cities, specifically states, I guess, in their resource guide for performance appraisals, they recommend, or I guess they advise, or they acknowledge that they say that each employer should decide on whether or not additional approvals of the performance evaluations are appropriate. For example, what managers or department heads, et cetera, should sign off on the reviews. So it would appear as if that, League of Oregon Cities is actually rounding the corners a bit more than you just described it, from what they're saying as far as performance reviews and so forth. And that's their opinion. That they have an opinion, you have an opinion. But it doesn't seem to be, to me, after reading that, especially not as cut and dry as it may be. And I wanted to bring up an opinion from, there was actually an opinion article in the Register Guard in Eugene, which was pretty interesting. When they were, after 26 years, actually it was 37 years, that they had a contract attorney. It's probably a firm that Mark's familiar with, Harangue Long, I guess. It's funny, Long Harangue. But, they said the three city managers who had been there for 27 years total said that an in-house attorney will have the tendency to mirror the policy views of the city manager who hired him or her, and who decides on raises and working conditions. So I guess, the human aspect of this is what I was concerned with, and it actually completely was consistent with what the concerns of the 26 years worth of city managers in Eugene had. When they went to go from a contract attorney to an in-house attorney, they saw that there could very easily be, I'm not going to say coercion, but I would say that the human factor of an attorney wanting to please the hand that feeds him, so to speak. That's my concern when I bring this up, because I think we're all human, and I think that's a very real consideration. So I'd also like to go back further and just say that, unless somebody else has something they want to say right now. I'd just like to go back a little further, that to try to explain what I believe the intent was. And Mark did, I think, accurately characterize what one of the main intents was when the charter was changed in 13. It addressed a very serious problem we had in 09, and I think everyone in the room at that charter task force understood that. But before 2013, in Grants Pass, the city manager exclusively hired and fired the city attorney. That's the way some cities are in the state. The League of Oregon Cities model charter is, quite a bit different, and they actually have some interesting. It's the office of the city attorney. This is from the model charter. Is established as the chief legal officer of a city government. A majority of the council must appoint and may remove the attorney. The attorney may appoint, supervise, and may remove any employees who work in and for the city attorney's office. So actually, their model charter actually sets up a whole department where, the city manager is actually not involved at all. And what we tried to do in 13 or 12 is we kind of tried to split the difference. In other words, rather than have the manager be completely out of the loop, the manager would choose and the council would approve or consent. And I think that covers the concern that we had in 13, which was really over inappropriate firing and the lack of clarity, lack of transparency when we went through, when we had 5 city attorneys in the first 6 months of 2009 with no explanation as to why some of them mysteriously left. I got an explanation from one of them directly, but publicly that didn't happen. So what I'd like to say is that we addressed in the charter task force in 2012, we addressed the main concern, which was the firing issue. We never at that time really thought about ongoing what that would be like as far as evaluations go, because we didn't have a city attorney, we had a contract attorney. To me, what we have now needs a small tweak, and that is to have the council president or an elected person's representative in the room to witness the evaluations. Right now, if the council were ever to be called on to approve a firing, I think to have been totally out of the loop and not have any idea what could have led up to that, and not to have been privy to what went on in evaluations, I think would put the council in a position of not having any idea really how to respond. So because we could be brought in the same way that we were brought in to approve a hiring tonight, we could be brought in to approve a termination, and without actually having been in that room for evaluations, we would have to basically take the manager's word for it. So to me, a small tweak would be appropriate to basically capture the spirit of what we were trying to do in 2012 with the Charter Task Force, to not have such an extreme concentration of authority, and the manager potentially having the ability to unduly influence or possibly even coerce a city attorney. And that was our thinking. And again, the city managers from Eugene, I guess, saw that as an issue. Anyway, that's how I feel about it, is that a small tweak is needed to really make this process be truly the hybrid system that we have. We're the only ones in the state that have this hybrid system, as far as I know. It's either the League of Oregon Cities situation, where the manager really is not involved with the hiring or firing, or it's the opposite of that. We have a hybrid system that we created. We are essentially the experts about our own system, and I feel that we have the ability to tweak that system. I suppose that someone could claim that's a violation of the charter. I don't think it's black and white. We have one attorney here tonight that feels it's black and white. I don't feel that way. And I don't see why it would be to have an observer in the evaluations.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by a small tweak. So a small tweak, in my opinion, would take a charter change. And if that's what you want to do, is go out to the voters and change the charter so that city councilors can be part of the city attorney's evaluation process, then so be it. But the way the charter stands right now, I think it would be coercive to have council members present as part of the evaluation process. And I mean, let's be realistic here. If there's a problem with the city attorney, that's a high profile enough position that I think that very likely it's going to be pretty apparent to the council, and not just city manager, there's a problem. The city manager would be talking to the council about it. And plus, you can have executive session and talk about disciplining an employee, at which time the council could be fully apprised of it, and the city attorney could be present in that session. The human element, I understand that. It's natural to want to please, but that, your alternative is just creating another body to please. I mean, I think in theory, regardless of who you're reporting to, me personally, I'd like to please all the city staff and the council at all times. I think that desire of any person in this position would be constant, regardless of whether or not someone's in your performance review. I just don't think it's supported by charter. And regardless of what League of Oregon Cities says, as you pointed out, we're the only one with a charter like this in the state. League of Oregon Cities never discussed our charter, so we're unique.
I understand what you're saying, and I realize that we're kind of at loggerheads here. We also, you and I both know that there have been restrictions placed on the charter that didn't go to a vote of the people. You know that, you authored them in 2010. So it's not black and white. Again, there's gray areas. And you and I both know what we're talking about. But so there can
restrictions placed on the charter that didn't go to the vote
placed on the
people?
council, yeah. You know, when we, whatever. We both know that. So it's not 100% black and white, and we could talk about that if you want to, but you authored it in 2010. So sometimes there are small changes that, again, are gray areas that do, we'll say, modify slightly. It's happened before. That's, you know, not my point. My point is that, okay, I call it a small tweak, you don't. I guess it, you know, depends on what the council feels, but to me it would improve the process. It would do nothing but improve the process. You know, and I guess, you know, it's your position that the charter is immutable. We have seen otherwise, but.
Well, I honestly don't know what you're talking about, but I mean, the charter is the charter. It is immutable. It is immutable unless the voters change it. So right now, my number one change to the charter, if we're gonna go out for a change to the charter, it'd be that one awful sentence about how the city manager will appoint the city recorder and then runs on and talk about other stuff. But I mean, if you wanna make a small tweak to it, a big tweak to it, you have to go to the voters. As it stands now, I think it'd be coercive to have council involved, so.
Vanessa?
Yeah, circling back, can you explain in layman's terms why you believe that would be coercion?
A counselor sitting in there?
Correct, to have a counselor witness the evaluation process.
Yeah, because I think that, you know, the counselor could be, I mean, just their presence it could be influential. Same reason why if there's an actual conflict of interest, the best practice is that a counselor gets up off the dais and goes and sits in the audience. So someone sitting right there looking over your shoulder as you do the evaluation, I think could influence how it's done.
Is there further discussion? Valerie?
Well, I would like to say that I'm glad this was brought forward because it was a question, and I knew, you know, in the past we have had issues, and obviously if people voted for it in 2013, it was an important enough issue that it needed to be solved. I feel comfortable myself, not necessarily having somebody in there, just knowing that they can't willy-nilly fire without having to come to the council. I would think under those circumstances that with 8 counselors, there would be a pretty big opportunity to discuss the discrepancies and why they feel that way. So I'm comfortable with that change without having to go any further myself.
Brian?
Yeah, I understand that it doesn't sound like we can go as far as Rob would like us to go with the charter. A middle ground might be having a copy of the review available during an executive session once a year for council to review. Mark said that wouldn't infringe on the charter, and it seems like a decent middle ground, and that's probably about as far as I'd be willing to go. Thanks.
Further discussion? Joel?
So I called Central Point this morning just to discuss what they did. They don't have a city attorney, they have a contract. And what happens, the city manager is responsible because it's viewed as his administrative responsibility in the charter, just like it is in our charter. What the city manager does there, very similar to what we did when we hired the city attorney, is invite council to participate in that. So what they would do down there is, prior to having a performance review with that contract, it's a contract, not a person, they would, in an executive session or open session, depending on the nature of it, probably the executive session, the city manager would just solicit any impact feedback from the council before going to that performance review. As a courtesy, and then the city manager can perform his administrative duties. The other comment I had was you know, I was a federal administrator for a long time, and I dealt with a lot of politicians that were elected. And they were like senators and House representatives and governors and county commissioners and sometimes council people, but not very often. It was been my experience that I've experienced more in my career, more abuse of power from the elected body than I did the administrative body. You know, I had a good conversation with Rob, and we talked, I don't know, I was late for my next meeting. We probably talked for 2 hours. It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed each other. But it's also, those abuses as an administrative officer personally affected me in an adverse way that was really unfair and in some cases illegal. So we need to be careful on both sides of the coin, I think, in terms, because people, no matter whether they're on the administrative side or elected side, you know, we're no smarter than anybody else. We perceive that we have some power. We can abuse that, and so can the administrative staff. So we just need to communicate back and forth. And I agree with Mark. I think it would require a charter amendment, given that the city manager has the responsibility to give administrative and supervision responsibilities. And I think it would take a charter amendment to do that. I don't know, but, you know, what else could I say? I do want to also say, back in the 19th century, and I'll stop, Brian. But there was no blurring of the lines between political positions and administrative positions. So every time a new administration came in, they'd fire everybody. You'd fire the city manager when the new mayor came in. And the mayor then would hire a city manager. It would be the president of the United States. He would hire civil servants all the way through and put his buddies in, or her buddies in. And there was a lot of graft and corruption, and so they had the Civil Service Reform Act back in the 19th century that prohibited that, and actually civil service positions now in the federal government, there's no performance reviews done by political appointees at all, except at the very top. Appointed positions like the cabinet and places like that.
Is there further discussion? All right. I guess without further discussion, we'll just move on. Public comment. So next, let's take care of public comment, and then we will come back to committee appointments in a little bit. We don't want to keep people waiting too long, except for Mark. Because this is the last time he gets to enjoy this. All right. Public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item for the council. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not to individuals. At the conclusion of public comment, council will have an opportunity to respond. This meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their opinions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. If you have a question regarding any government-provided service or a current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve the matter. And first up tonight is David Dapper.
Hi, and thanks for the opportunity. I just want to bring to mind, recently when the police cleared out Riverside Park, they found 35 needles in that park. Our friends walking our dog stepped on a needle. Our niece who lives with us hadn't gone to Tussin Park since one of the junkies there exposed himself at her. And I sent all of you an email with a couple videos of a recent trip to Tussin Park. And I also a letter from my doctor what this is doing to me. My wife comes back, and one of them tried to walk the dog down there, and one of the junkies camping there was screaming at her about what are you looking at, and put me in orbit. Officer McGinnis is doing all he can, but he needs you to give him authority to tell him to get the heck out of there. Give them they want to live behind that thrift store on 6th and West Park. They're cut off from the neighborhoods. And give them a place. Just tell them, you can't be here. We want our neighborhoods back and our parks back. Our property taxes go to it's an awesome park for families, but when the families that live there and pay the property taxes can't enjoy it, what's the point? Our police need an opportunity to tell them, no, you go here. You want to live like that, you live like that. And most of them they choose it. And this legal meth and heroin thing wasn't a good idea. And it's not helping anybody. And please give our officers the authority to direct them. And if you direct them into one spot, they can be supervised, and it's better for them also for all the assaults to keep them to a minimum. Anyway, please consider this. And please look at those videos, those 2 videos from a recent trip. That's not what we pay for. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Judy Anno.
I think I'll be fine, but yeah. Okay. Good evening, Council. I'm Judy Ano with Blackberry Lane Homes. Myself and the 3 HOA board members are requesting that the city, I'm sorry, sat here so long. I went ahead. Let me start over. We are here today because we cannot vote in city elections, even though we pay full city taxes and receive full city services. Myself and the 3 HOA board members are requesting that the city initiate the annexation process for Blackberry Lane Homes development. Valerie Lovelace and Bradley Clark have been working with me. As such, I have assurances that our request is viable. 2 of the Blackberry Lane Homes board members are with me today, back there. Hopefully you saw my email to the council from Monday. This email includes important supporting documents. Blackberry Lane Homes consists of a development of 38 homes in the urban growth boundary in the Redwood area. Our development is fully completed and developed according to city codes. As I indicated, we have all city services, including water, sewer, and public safety. Some background information. Number 1, our developers signed a full services and annexation agreement providing irrevocable consent to annexation. The email has a copy of that. Number 2, Connie Roach confirmed that the tax rate for all Blackberry Lane lots will not change once we are annexed. Again, the email includes her letter. Bradley Clark verbally confirmed with me that the Blackberry Lane Homes is contiguous to city boundary at both the northeast and the southwest corner. The email has a map from Bradley showing our subdivisions, so if you didn't see that. I really appreciate the help that Valerie and Bradley have provided. I have also talked briefly with both Vanessa and Joel. We are motivated and passionate about the ability to vote in city elections, and We welcome a path forward on this matter as soon as feasibly possible. Thank you very much for consideration.
Thank you. Next is Stephen Nelson.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I concur the homeless situation is probably here to stay, and we need to figure out some answers. I will speak about the local homelessness problem by first painting a picture of contrast. Homelessness has become a daily common sight in the city, even as a multi-million-dollar horse racing casino is being built in the midst of the problem. Certainly, aspects of homeless camping have adversely affected neighborhoods, and a local casino will likely adversely affect gambling addiction. Also worth mentioning is the link of a greed-driven industry to the rigors of the racing circuit, known to put horses at risk for injury and death. I have friends of local churches who work each Sunday afternoon to feed some of the homeless folk, and their efforts are appreciated. One homeless man found a $20 bill on the ground and later decided to donate this to the feeding project. Also, I know that Foundry Village is needed and worthy to help the urgent city problem, but I have difficulty imagining that any of the millions of dollars which might be generated by a local gambling enterprise would ever go into helping to alleviate an urgent local crisis. I can only describe a casino by quoting a verse in the Bible: "The love of money is the root of evil." Homelessness can be the result of the selfish addictive habits of meth, heroin, or alcohol, or any other circumstances which spiraled out of control. The hundreds of people of Talent, Phoenix, and Medford did not know that they would one day be homeless. Unfortunately, the addictive, dark, and lawless behavior of some gives the entire local homeless population a bad name. But this is understandable as we look at some of those sites in the community. I don't have enough answers, but addicted or not, homeless human beings need some kind of help with long-term goals, or some of them will hopelessly die from their vices or from exposure to the elements. Grants Pass needs more projects like Foundry Village. Foundry Village has began with a vision to help certain homeless people, but with rules to abide by. There is acreage southwest of the fairgrounds. Maybe some of that land could be purchased to start another project. I only know that city parks were never meant to be the campgrounds for the homeless. If some of those with the obvious financial means would be willing to help the city problem, how meaningful would that be? Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a slip for Dawn. Don Haynes, but I saw him leave, and I don't think he's outside. Is anybody else wanting to speak tonight during public comment? All right. In that case, we will close public comment and give council an opportunity to respond. Did anybody? Oh, we'll do the emails after, Julie. We usually do them after. Valerie?
Yeah, I just would like to talk a minute about the annexation, because it's taken me a long time to kind of figure it all out. And so I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of background. As 2014, there was a law that if you needed to annex, it had to go out to the voters. And so in 2014, we did annex, I think, over 700 tax lots in 18 different areas of the city, but we didn't annex everything. And so since that time, we have annexed nothing. And so many developers, as in this case, when Gail Atkins built that property, she signed it so that anybody who bought into that project automatically paid all of the taxes, the same amount of money to have water, sewer, and public safety. So they're paying the exact same amount as anybody else, but they don't have the right to vote. And since that time, the law has changed. The legislature changed the law where if a group of people in that particular subdivision are contiguous to the city boundary, that they can annex themselves in. Well, part of the problem has been we've never done anything since 2014. We have never acted on it. We have never, and there are, I think there's like 180 other pieces of properties or tax lots that since then can be annexed in, whatever. And there will be more as we bring in Allen Creek, as we bring in Allenwood, as we bring in all of these. So what I'm hoping to do is get the process started, that the city can initiate it and go through. It is land use is what it is. So they'll have to notice the nearby properties that these people are going to be annexed. And so there's a process that they have to go through to get there. And so we don't have any of the paperwork drawn up because we've never done it before. But I think it's time that we do. So I'm hoping that the council tonight can give the notice to the city to move forward, to do the start the public hearing process to get these people annexed. And as they do it, develop a system so that more people who would like to become annexed and have the right to vote can go through the same process. And we'll establish it as we go along. So that's what I would like to see happen tonight, is to make it start to happen.
Well, I think we're just responding to public comment at this point. Mark?
Yeah, I want to point out that based on what I know, there's nothing that would prevent this collective of owners from making an application for annexation.
There is
right
no
now.
application, and we don't have, there's a cost involved because they'd have to go through some sort of legal process to get it started. It's my understanding, and
Well,
that's why.
so the
we'd like to
council
make
can initiate it, or any property owner can initiate it. So there is, I don't know what the application form looks like here. I've done them personally in private practice many times. They're relatively simple applications, actually. So generally, property owners initiate their own requests for annexation rather than coming to the city and saying, hey, please initiate an annexation on our behalf. So there are options out there. They could act unilaterally without the council doing anything, and then the council would have a criteria pertaining to annexations before it and could annex it by virtue of their application.
Okay, Joel, without legislating this issue all the way through, do you have a comment?
Well, I was just supporting what Valerie was saying, and either we need to get the form to the interested citizen, or we need to schedule it when we do the agenda so that the council can initiate action. So we need to do one or the other.
Yeah, staff will continue to take the lead on that and make sure that the right information is provided to the right parties. And if it does take council action to do something, we'll inform you and let you know.
Thank you. Is there a further response to public comment tonight? Vanessa?
I did want to respond to Mr. Dapper. I believe he's left for the evening, so if anyone had any similar concerns, I'm hoping that this address could help resolve them. So the concerns for the status of the park is something that I hear very frequently, and I'm sure each of us can attest to that. This issue is a lot bigger than the Grants Pass City Council. We are currently bound by a federal injunction, which stems from precedent from the Ninth Circuit Court, which has jurisdiction over 9 states and 2 territories. So this issue is a lot bigger than the Grants Pass City Council. And I think understanding that goes a really long way in understanding how we can effectively move forward from where we are now. The City Council is currently working on helping facilitate the development of an urban campground, which is a supervised area for people to voluntarily enter and reside. The parks are available for all during the day. Any member of the community can utilize the parks, including sitting on a bench, which was one of the videos that were sent to us. However, continuing going forward, if you see something, say something. If you see something illegal occurring, of course, contact our police division and report that. Otherwise, most of the concerns that people have stem from a place of not knowing where we are, so I was just hoping to provide some context to that situation.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right. Julie, how about a recap of our emails?
You received one email against additional permanent taxes, one email in opposition to the establishment of an urban campground, and 2 emails with a suggested location for an urban campground.
Thank you. All right, let's bounce back to appointments. We have a number of committees to appoint to this evening. So you should have a little packet of kind of our nomination process here. The first one that we're going to be dealing with is the Committee on Public Art. So we have one application, one opening, and one candidate reapplied. The Committee on Public Art, which we also call COPA, has unanimously voted to recommend Larry Evans to renew membership. They say he has been serving as the chair of the committee and is well respected by the members. So council, we just have the one, so I probably don't need you to fill out the slip today. Go ahead, Valerie.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Larry Evans to the Committee of Public Art.
Is there a second? Brian, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All right, so the motion is to reappoint Larry Evans to the committee. And Valerie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 8-0. Next up, we have the Historical Building and Sites Commission. And we had some interviews for this on Monday. We had 2 candidates apply. There is 1 opening, and the committee's recommendation is for Cynthia Sherratt. They say Cynthia is highly qualified, and we'd be very lucky to get her. She would be boots on and ready to go. She's been on committees and loves the city and has been a professor out at the college. She's highly qualified and has a deep passion for historic preservation. So if you would, counselors, please circle your nomination for this position and put your name on it, hopefully in a way I can read, and then we will DJ, you can text yours to me if you want. Thank you. Okay, we have here 7 nominations for Cynthia Sherratt and 1 for Linda Cole. Cynthia Sherratt, we have Rick, DJ, must be Rob, Joel, Kurt, Valerie, and Brian. And Vanessa's nomination was for Linda Cole. What would you like to do, council? Vanessa?
I'd like to provide reasoning for my vote. I respect and appreciate the recommendation from the commission. My vote stems from being the liaison to the Committee of Public Art when Cynthia was a member of that committee. And that committee unfortunately had to make a very difficult decision in requesting that the City Council remove Cynthia from that committee due to inattendance and what was explained as a lack of desire to remove herself and also check her emails and be in contact with the Committee on Public Art. So my decision stems from that place. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie?
Yeah, I actually was also on the Committee of Public Art, and I struggled with this one a little bit as well, because I do know that there were some issues, but I also know that there were some true medical concerns that she had as well. And so I struggled because I know she is very qualified and she has a lot to bring to the committee, and I think that outweighed and the fact that we had had a discussion and talked about how important it was. So I think that the message that needs to be there, if indeed she gets on there, is that if she doesn't follow through, that there is a quick, we get on it right away and bring in the other person. So that was my thought too.
All right, any further discussion? Is there a motion? Valerie?
I'll make a motion to appoint Cynthia Charette to the HPSC,
I'll second that.
Historical
Second.
Buildings and Site Commission.
Second from
I say that
Joel.
for Arden.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, Valerie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
All right. Cynthia Charette is appointed to the HBSC. Next up, we have the Collaborative Economic Development Committee. There's one applicant and one opening. So Grant Stutzman has applied and he received the committee's recommendation. Grant represents a strong retail outlet that provides building supplies, so he knows lumber supplies, how lumber supplies impacts the housing market. He's very active in several different community organizations, which will provide some cross-pollination. He is creative and motivated. He is active in the Cave Junction Chamber and very knowledgeable. He'll provide a new perspective from a younger generation and be able to relate to everyone. That was the committee's recommendation. So again, on this one, go ahead, Valerie.
I just make a motion to accept Grant Stutzman and appoint him to the Community Economic Development Commission.
Second from Rick, thank you. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, Valerie has nominated Grant Stutzman. How do you vote, Val?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 8-0. Next up, Budget Committee. We have 2 openings on this committee and 3 candidates applied. You'll all recall meeting them on Monday for interviews. We do not have apparently a recommendation on this one. From, I guess the Budget Committee doesn't meet regularly, so they couldn't have made a recommendation. The applicants, I guess, are Josh Ballack, Jay Meredith, Tammy Schmidt-Kirk. So, counselors, if you would kindly circle 2 picks on your form and pass them down to me, that would be great. And DJ, please text me yours. Yeah, this one's going to take me a quick minute to tally up here. I got a blank one. So we'll see if somebody's missing. Maybe that was mine.
DJ.
Well, We have 5. Oh, hang on. DJ just changed his. Okay. I have 6 for Tammy, coming from Rob, Rick, Brian, Kurt, Joel, and DJ. I have 5 for Josh, from Vanessa, Rob, Brian, Valerie, and Kurt. And 5 for Jay, from Vanessa, Rick, Valerie, DJ, and Joel. So, Brian.
That's a close one. I would move to appoint Josh Balich and Tammy Schmidt-Kirk to the Budget Committee.
Okay, we have a motion for, it was Josh and Tammy. It was 6 for Tammy, 5 for Josh, 5 for Jay. All right, so the motion right now is to appoint Josh Balich and Tammy Schmidt-Kirk. Is there a second from Kurt? Okay, is there any discussion on that? Okay, Brian, you made, DJ, go ahead.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'll be voting no for this motion. I have a strong preference for Jay and Tammy. The reason that I have a strong preference for Jay is there's a very steep learning curve, which Jay has succeeded already. So bringing him up to speed would be very simple to do. And plus, he's proven to understand the finances of the city, and he'd be a great asset on the budget committee.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Rick?
I would also be supportive of DJ's comments that I feel Jay is able to review the budget and provide insight that we may not find otherwise. Thank you.
Joel?
Well, I would support the previous comments for Jay. The other thing, though, Josh did bring a lot to the table, and he's very capable. He talked about leveraging funds, and if he doesn't get appointed to the budget committee, he needs to be involved in his knowledge of leveraging funds, regardless of whether he's on the budget committee or not. So that's my thought.
Valerie?
I truly struggle with this one because of the fact that both Josh and Jay bring such strong skills in budgeting. I agree that Jay has the background and knows our budget in and out, and he has given me immense knowledge in the years of understanding the budget and looking at it in different ways. I really like that Josh also has the ability to do the leveraging, but I'm almost a little bit to where I feel like the leveraging part of it could happen either way, because I don't think through our budget we'll be able to leverage to know if we can get those leveraged funds, because a lot of those have to do with lobbying and that sort of thing. So I didn't want to be put in this position, because actually I voted for the two of them because I felt they both had such strong skills to bring to the table for us. So I think I will probably be saying no for this, because I do think that I want to work with Josh, but I also know that I can work with Josh outside of this and continue to work on how to leverage funds. And I think in terms of value on the budget committee, I would prefer to have Jay.
Rick?
Josh is a very valuable and capable person, and I hope he would, whoever ends up being not selected, would still participate either through the council or attending the meetings and provide their input. That would be appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Brian?
Yeah, we've got 3 qualified candidates. Any of the 3 would do the job admirably, I think. I think of the three, we're probably as a council most familiar with Jay. Jay, as we all know, was the previous finance director for the city. I got a little bit of inconsistency when he was here Monday compared to his application. One thing in his application says he feels like he has a decent understanding of the citizens' needs and desires. And when he was here, I don't remember his exact quote, but it was something to the effect of he would, help to implement council's direction and council's will. So the application is a little bit different than what he said to us on Monday. And then another part of his application was talking about ensuring resources are allocated to meet the city's needs in the most efficient way possible. And that, doesn't sound very unclear, but Jay's opinion of what the city's needs are may not be what the council's thinks the city's needs are. So, and we all know Jay has been very outspoken, and he has written for a partisan news publication locally, and he has spoken out against this council's direction and things we're trying to get done. So I think that needs to be said, and honestly, I don't know why he's trying to be on the budget committee. Thanks.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Brian made the motion for Josh Ballack and Tammy Schmidt-Kirk. So Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
No.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel? No. Kurt?
Yes.
And DJ? Oh, I skipped Valerie. Sorry, Valerie.
No.
DJ?
No.
All right, we are tied 4-4. Do I break the tie and a committee appointment? All right, I'm going to vote yes to appoint Josh and Tammy. Next up, we have a big one. We have a new committee, and I'm going to let you all know we're going to take a break right after this one, okay?
Or we can take a break while somebody else counts.
Yeah. We can all take a break while I count them up. Okay, so we have a new committee, the Sustainability and Energy Action Task Force. There are 10 openings on this committee. 12 candidates applied, but there are various categories. So we have categories here for local energy efficiency engineer, where we have Robert Allen and Jan O'Hara. We had a category for a solar professional that did not receive any applicants. We have a position for a contractor or developer, and Tom Bradbeer would fit into that category. He's the only applicant. We had a position for a Grants Pass High School student, and we have an applicant, Ethan Nelson. For the RCC student, we did not receive any applicants. And then for the horticultural arborist landscape architect position, we have an applicant, David Bartlett. And then finally for the member at large, there are 3 positions, and we have a number of people who would fit into this category. They are Robert Allen, David Bartlett, Tom Bradbeer, Tom Brandis, Jan O'Hara, Matthew Rosen, Robert Schaller, David Sleeger, Jonas Stewart, Joe Stodola, and Arlo Todd. So you'll see that some of those names are repeating from other categories. So that said, please, I guess, I don't know if you want to talk about it first or just do your nominations first. Brian?
Yeah, I just had a question because the way it's stated on the form is we have 3 at-large positions. And if we only select 3 of those, I think the committee is not going to be full at its inception. So I went ahead and circled more than 3, up to the 10 openings for the full committee. I don't know if that's okay, but that's what I did on mine.
That's what I did as well.
Okay, Valerie says she did that as well. Vanessa?
I don't have it in front of me, but Jason, can you cite, is that including non-voting members, that total? The 12?
Yeah, the
10
non-voting members we did not include on your list. They're, the ex officio members are separate. I would give you a couple of options. I think that Councilor De La Grange, you're right on target. We might want to consider leaving the RCC position open because we are actively recruiting that with one of the members. So maybe possibly appoint 9, even though we haven't filled all of the, all of the positions, but potentially maybe leave the RCC position open.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Would it be fair to also do that for the solar position too?
That I would leave to your guys' discretion, if you wanted the committee to be fuller. Otherwise, we could re-advertise. We only advertised this once with an actual fairly short window, and we had a pretty good turnout, but we did miss a couple of the categories.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess what you're proposing, Brian, is that we would move forward and fill the positions with the candidates that have already applied rather than re-advertising?
I think that was my original intent, and I did circle 10, but based on what Jason said, maybe we would take the top 9 or 8 and leave those 1 or 2 positions open still.
Yeah, Aaron, can you clarify maybe on the positions?
Yeah.
Like, do we have to fill those positions?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that. So those are called out as positions for the task force. And so if you appointed 10, then we ultimately kept solar and RCC open, then you'd end up with 12, is my understanding. So that's different than I think the language that's in the
Yeah, I was suggesting that they not appoint 10, but like if they were going to leave RCC open, appoint 9.
Right, that's correct. So yeah, tonight, if you want to leave and keep the defined solar professional and RCC student open, then you'd be looking at appointing 8 this evening total. You'd appoint 1 local energy, 1 solar would be left open, 1 contractor, 1 student. RCC would be left open. 3 of the listed there that weren't previously appointed would be, and then agriculture would be 1. So you would not be doing 10. So if you all do 10, then our numbers aren't going to be matching with what's open. So, it could be that you may want to take, and I think from an important perspective, knocking out some of those specifics so it leaves the positions at large, which are really going to be the key, deciding if it's going to be Robert or Jan for local energy right off the bat, and then that takes out Robert or Jan as one of the members at large. And then you've got 1 already for contractor, you've got 1 already for agriculture, you could take those 2 off the list of members at large. You've got 1 for student, you could take that one's taken care of. And so that leaves you with just 3 out of the minus those that you're taking a look at. So it makes it easier to appoint and discuss who's going to be what position.
Brian?
So that all makes sense. What I see here is if we have 1 from each category and 3 at large, that only adds up to 9 by my count. So
Me too.
I would propose that for the local energy efficiency engineer, since we have 2 people, to maybe have 2 positions open, even though one of them could be at large. I think that's a pretty valuable position for the committee. So if we had 2 of them, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so Brian's proposal was to appoint 2 local energy efficiency engineers and then 3 at large, and that would add up to 10, assuming we got an applicant for solar and RCC at some point in the future. Okay, I'm seeing some heads nod. Does anybody want to have a question about that or want to argue against that?
I just have a question, because I did, in looking over one of them, somebody does have some solar education, but I don't know, are we looking for a solar person who installs solar, is that what we're looking for, is more specifically a contractor? Okay.
Okay, so, council, I mean,
okay.
Mayor, the sheet is minus one category, and that's that 10th one, which is forestry. We do not have an applicant for forestry at this time, so that would be another one that would be left open. So if council was to, you'd still be looking then at appointing one for the local energy efficiency in order to keep the forestry position open.
okay. First question, council, do you want to advertise for, we have 3 positions that did not receive applicants, solar, RCC student, and forestry. Do you want to keep those positions open, or do you want to, I mean, I think we can we scrap that plan if we wanted to tonight and just fill all 10 slots with people who have applied? So do you want to re-advertise those 3 positions? You want me to go around the room, Vanessa?
I have a question.
Okay.
If we so chose to move forward this evening with those seats open, that wouldn't affect the task force's ability to mobilize, would it? There would
No,
still be a
I don't
quorum?
believe so. You'd be short the one RCC member, one solar energy. By the time, we could probably get those people on board by the time the committee's really up and running, the task forces.
Thank you.
So we could appoint 7 tonight, or we can appoint 10 tonight as maybe another way of looking at it. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So if we leave those spots open, I mean, we can choose who we're going to choose tonight, leave those spots open, advertise again for those spots, and add them as they go along, if we get them?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if that's the case, then we would just be circling 3 in the at-large positions.
Yes, really that's the intent right now, is
Right.
that you would choose one of these people in the local energy category and then 3 people from the at-large, and then of course you're under no obligation to appoint any of the other people either. So who, do you want to re-advertise the 3 positions, Vanessa?
To remain consistent with my request on Monday to reapply for the Caveman Task Force, yes.
Okay, Rick?
So please restate the question.
Do you want to re-advertise the
Sure.
3 positions?
Sure.
Rob?
We can move forward and re-advertise, right? We would be doing
Yes.
both. Yes, I do want to re-advertise.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes, yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And DJ?
Yep.
Okay, so we will just be appointing a total of 7 tonight. So I think, Brian, that probably does away with your suggestion. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
In that case, please circle, and circle for all the categories, because in some of these, we only have one person maybe who fits the bill, but you are not obligated to choose that person either. So choose 1 for each of the categories and 3 at large. And we may need to do a little shuffling when we get to at large. Maybe pick 4. Why don't you pick 4 for at large? That way, in case anybody's a duplicate, it'll give us like a ranking, because
We're just choosing 3 at large, right?
if you would select 4, I think it'll, because there's some duplication.
Choose the top 3.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I'm totally confused. Man.
So yeah, choose 1 for each category if you want 1 of those people, and 4 for at-large, and we will select 3 for the at-large.
Sarah?
Well, so if you'll just nominate 4, because I think that'll help us work through some duplication issues. And DJ, if you could submit your numbers when you get a chance.
Sarah, on mine, I have so much scribble, I put stars next to the ones.
I'm writing them
Sorry.
out. Same thing, I have to write them out. I have the same issue.
You can star, circle, whatever you want. Try to write your name legibly so that I can ask you if I have questions.
Okay.
That's- All right.
Okay. Just manage
Why don't
here.
we just go, I don't know, it's kind of awkward
Just
to
give
go
me a
into
minute
recess
here.
in the middle of an item. Just sit there and wait.
I think we should have Mark count them. That's his final action. There we go. Oh, yeah. Oh, just a minute. I'm just. Oh. Okay, I have to go between two more here.
Rick, on one that, Rick. Had a question for Rick, but I'll come back to him.
Okay, I think I got it.
Don was here? And he took off. Yeah. Well, I assume he was going to say something at public comment, but I guess he changed his mind. Yeah. Yeah, I know. He's not cut. He's not cut out of this.
Did you need to talk to?
Valerie?
Valerie.
I have a question about what's going on with yours here. Is it the ones written in the blue pen? Okay. It would be way easier if I didn't have to keep track of names, but that's all right. I think we've got it figured out here. All right. In the category local energy efficiency engineer, we have 6 votes for Robert, 6 nominations, I guess, for Robert Allen, coming from Rick, Rob, Kurt, Joel, DJ, and Valerie. And Jan O'Hara had 2 from Brian and Vanessa. Contractor developer Tom Bradbeer had 8 nominations. GPHS student Ethan Nelson had 8 nominations. Down at the bottom, agriculture, horticulture had 8 nominations. In the member at large section, we had 7 for Arlo Todd, coming from Joel, Rob, Vanessa, Brian, DJ, Valerie, and Rick. So that was 7 for Arlo Todd. We have 6 for Matthew Rosen, coming from Joel, Kurt, Rob, Brian, DJ, and Rick. We have also 6 for Jan O'Hara, coming from DJ, Joel, Kurt, Rob, Valerie, and Rick. Then we have 4 for Tom Brandis, from Rick, Joel, Kurt, and Brian. 4 for Robert Schaller, from Valerie, Kurt, Rob, Vanessa. 2 for Joe Stadola, Valerie, and Vanessa. 1 for David Sliger, coming from DJ, and 1 for Robert Allen, coming from Brian.
So what were the top 3?
So top 3 were Arlo Todd with 7, Robert Schaller, Arlo Todd with 7, Matthew Rosen with 6, Jan O'Hara with 6, and then it goes to 4 for Robert Schaller and Tom Brandis. That's what you have. Brian?
Can I just try to do this all in one swoop here?
Please do.
I would appoint I'll just do them individually. Local energy efficiency engineer, Robert Allen for that seat, Tom Bradbeer for the contractor developer seat, Ethan Nelson for the GPHS student seat, David Bartlett for the agriculture horticulture seat, and then Arlo Todd, Matthew Rosen, and Jan O'Hara for the at-large seats.
Is there a second from Rick? Thank you. Any discussion? No? Okay, DJ also had a second. Okay, I guess not seeing any discussion. Brian, how do you want me to read them again, or are you guys all good?
We're good.
Okay, Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
DJ?
Yeah.
Okay. And now, I'm going to take a recess until 9 p.m.
We are?
So,
Why? We just had our recess.
there's some cupcakes in the corner. All right, everybody. We have to entertain a quick motion from Councilor Riker.
I'd like to make a motion, to extend the city council meeting past 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Is there a second? Vanessa, thank you. All in favor of extending the meeting?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Let's continue then. We made it through all those appointments, and next up is the consent agenda. And we have one starred item, so it looks like the city manager is ready to start us off with that.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Have a brief presentation on the city attorney hiring and council consent with the resolution on the consent calendar for you. This supports council goals of providing proper shared leadership to ensure efficient effectiveness in city operations. So why are we talking about this today? Well, in August of 2021, the current city attorney provided notice to terminate legal services contract with the city. So August 30th to 2021, we did propose hiring an in-house city attorney versus a current contracted legal services. We did hold an open recruitment after council consent on that concept. City manager and city attorney did provide multiple interviews and screening of candidates through this time period, where we had Zoom meetings or team meetings with candidates, and ultimately brought forward one for a panel interview, which included 2 council members associated with that interview process. Through that interview process, it was determined unanimously that Augustus Ogu was recommended to fill the position of city attorney. He is currently employed with Josephine County as the Assistant Legal Counsel 2. He's been there since 2017. He previously worked with the law firm in Lake Oswego. He is local. He lives here in Grants Pass, which is really exciting and nice to see. So housing is not an issue for him. He came from an education background from Lewis and Clark Law School and Concordia University. He is involved in the community. He is part of the Illinois Valley High School program, and he's a soccer coach there. He is and I mentioned as he does reside in Grants Pass, and he is available for the first day of employment starting February 16th. So his first day would be our next council business meeting. So that would be exciting. Yep.
I just wanted to point out, incorrect statement a couple slides back. You don't need to go back to it, but I actually gave my resignation notice in June.
Oh, in June. Okay. Okay. All right. So Mark has been very generous with his time, stating that it was June that he provided notice, and he did say he'd stick around until we found his replacement. Cost is about $174,000 a year. Your alternatives is to approve the resolution, or pull the resolution from consent and take no action, or take action as discussed by council. You can pass this resolution just with the regular consent calendar, or if you did it separate, there's a potential motion if you did it independent of the consent calendar on the screen. And with that, I turn it over to you, Council. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Kurt?
Yeah, did you feel coerced by having Rob and Valerie there? Or was it Mark doing the coercion to hire?
Yeah, Mark was the one that I felt the pressure from, yes.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Aaron. And with that, City Council President, would you like to read the consent agenda?
Sure, will do. Item A, resolution authorizing the city manager to adjust the salary schedule in years 2 and 3 of the International Association of Firefighters Collective Bargaining Agreement. B, resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the local agency agreement number 28945 with ODOT for Allen Creek Road improvements. C, resolution establishing the interest rate to be applied during calendar year 2022 to deferred development agreement monies on deposit. D, resolution consenting to the appointment of Augusta Ogu as city attorney. E, resolution approving the Boatneck agreement with the Active Club. F, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for pollution liability insurance for the Merlin landfill. G, motion approving the minutes of the City Council emergency meeting of December 27th, 2021. Approving the minutes under item H of the City Council special meeting of January 3rd, 2022. I, approving the minutes of the City Council meeting of January 5th, 2022. Motion approving the minutes of the City Council special meeting of January 24th, 2022. Motion acknowledging the minutes of the Bikeways and Walkways Committee meeting, December 14th, 2021. Motion acknowledging the minutes of the Urban Area Planning Commission meeting of November 10th, 2021. M, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Housing Advisory Committee meeting of November 19th, 2021. And finally, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Urban Tree Advisory Committee meeting of November 8th, 2021. And with that, I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Valerie, thank you. And I guess we don't usually talk about this. So Joel, the motion was to approve. How do you vote?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Brian? Yes. Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And DJ?
Yes.
Thanks for hanging in there with us, DJ. The consent calendar passed 8-0. Next up, matters from mayor, council, and staff. I'll pass. I already said my words to Mark, so council, go ahead. Anything you'd like to discuss? Vanessa?
Yeah, I wanted to announce there's going to be a Housing Solutions Community Forum on Tuesday, February 8th at 6 p.m. physically here in the council chambers with an option to attend virtually. You'll need to contact our Housing and Neighborhood Specialist, Amber Neek, at aneeck@grantspassoregon.gov. This is an opportunity to hear from renters in the community, specifically about statistics and their experiences with being rent burdened, and also if landlords would like to come as well, they're more than welcome. Again, Tuesday, February 8th.
Thank you. Anybody else? Joel?
So I've been talking with the consultant. We talked about possibly hiring for putting together a community consensus group on an issue of some contention in the community, homelessness. And as part of that presentation before council, he wants to do some homework. So he's coming over and he's going to form, this is a no charge to anybody. He's going to come over and form a group of about 12 people to go through a preliminary workshop. And if any of the counselors are interested in participation, with 12 people, we don't want it to dominate. And I would like a variety of views from the council, and not just to have people that are on one or the other side of the issue. But if you're interested in participating in that as preparation for the presentation to the committee, just talk to me and we can make it happen.
I just have a question. Is that a city-sponsored meeting, or is that something that you're doing privately?
It's something that he wants to do privately before his presentation as preparation. So, I don't think the city's sponsoring it, no. I don't think it would be here in City Hall. It could be if we wanted to.
Okay, I was just wondering if there's going to be an opportunity for the public to either view or participate remotely in some way?
Possibly to view it. Let me talk to him to see what his thoughts are, because they've done it all over the world. So let me talk to him, and if it's a possibility, I'll get back to you. Okay, good idea.
Valerie?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that the Downtown Merchants have put together a First Friday event, so they are actually going to have some music and some things down this Friday for February. So that's 2 nights from now. So just getting it out there to the public.
Brian?
So I know we don't really do this anymore as far as reporting on committees, but I did sit in on my first meeting as the Tourism Committee liaison, and I just wanted to report back to council that one of the items that they discussed was, and they just briefly discussed this, and they asked me to convey this to you so you were aware. Right now it's a city tourism committee, and they floated the idea of having it getting a couple of non-city members on the committee to round out the group. It was a pretty basic discussion, but they just wanted me to kind of let everyone know that they were talking about it in case a motion comes out at a future meeting. So that's all I got.
Anybody else? Okay. Staff, are there any comments from staff?
Uh-oh. Gonna get back at us now.
Well, I brought some notes up just so I can cover some statistics that I would probably forget. But yeah, I just want to say it's been an honor and privilege to be here all these years. And I mean, I've loved working here. So that's why I stayed as long as I did, and why I stayed even since June, which I wanted to correct that it was June rather than August. And you know, we had to do a couple rounds of solicitation, and I kind of had mixed feelings. I mean, I was a little disappointed we didn't hire anybody right away, but at the same time, I was kind of happy too. You know, I guess I'm just going to give a little background on really how it all started. I did some municipal work through my firm for various local entities. No city as big as Grants Pass, but I knew a lot about land use, which is highly applicable in municipal law. And so, you know, there was some turmoil going on in the city around 2010 or I guess 2009. And Laurel Sampson, who was the newly minted pro tem city manager at the time, found the city without a city attorney. And so they called League of Oregon Cities and they said, call Horniker Cowling. And so the call came through to me, and I met with Laurel and agreed to be the city attorney for what I thought would be a kind of a cameo stint for just 2 or 3 months. And, you know, there's a lot of turmoil going on. It wasn't the best situation. The length of those council meetings were a lot longer than the ones we have now. Although I will add, I think workshops then were still significantly shorter than our average workshop now. But I helped the city navigate through that uncomfortable process. And, you know, while it was, you know, not good politically, and it was emotional, and I think there were hurt feelings and, you know, some bad things going on, from a strict legal perspective, it was very interesting. And I really enjoyed the challenges of it, and the intricacies of it, and all of the nuances and just the new things that you just didn't see every day. And I liked it a lot. I found that I really enjoyed collaborating with staff, and I ended up staying longer than I thought I would. And I think Laurel was not really in a big hurry to try to go out and do a solicitation and find someone in-house. And so I remember on April 15th, 2010, she called me, and I remember that date, not because of taxes, but because I was in the hospital trying to be quiet because my second child had been born the day before. And so she called me on my cell phone and said, hey, I just want to take the interim tag off. Will you just be our city attorney? I said, yes, I'd love to. So, you know, even then I thought, you know, it'll just be a couple of years. And so, you know, since then there were still a lot of changes. That little baby that I was trying not to wake up, he's in middle school now. He's gonna be 12 here in a couple months. And I asked Karen to tally up how many counselors I've worked with over the years. So it's 30 different counselors. Wow. I actually thought it would be a higher number. I was thinking it'd be like 45 or 50, but 30 counselors, 4 mayors, 2 public works directors, 4 planning directors, 3 police chiefs, 2 HR directors, 3 finance directors, a couple parks directors when we used to have those. A deputy city manager, we used to have that. I guess 2 different deputy city managers and 3 city managers. Wow. So I've really enjoyed working with every single one of those people. Lots of the staff members who I worked with are still friends of mine, great friends of mine. So a like I said, it's been a privilege. And I've got a lot of great clients, but the one I'm most proud of has always been the city of Grants Pass, and it always will be. So, thank you.
Oh.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
Thanks for staying up late with us. All right, any other comments from staff? Aaron?
We just want to also, Kent, it's tough to follow that, but I just want to also thank Mark for his dedication and his enthusiasm and his professionalism through the challenging times, the smooth times, and we've had a lot of wonderful things that have been accomplished with him helping council make quality policy decisions for the community. And it's, I think, a rare find to have someone that has the well-rounded legal ability to provide councils with legal advice like Mark and his firm has, and he will definitely be missed. He has become a fixture here, and we will definitely miss him for his professionalism, friendship, and humor that he brings to the table. So thank you, Mark.
Definitely can't top that either, and I want to thank Mark for not always telling me no.
All right. Mark, put your mask on, please.
Oh. No, he's done.
Anybody else? Brian?
I move to adjourn.
All right. Is there a second? Vanessa with the second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are adjourned 9:16, and see you next Monday.